Wendy's is pushing back against claims it's implementing surge pricing in its menus. In a recent earnings call, new CEO Kirk Tanner announced plan to integrate AI in its menus to give the fast food chain more.
12 restaurant chains you ate at last year are actively falling apart right now. Not struggling, not pivoting, falling apart. We pulled the bankruptcy filings, the franchise disclosure documents, the health inspection records, and the earnings call transcripts, where CEOs use words like headwinds and softness to describe locations closing and customers leaving by the millions. What we found is a collapse pattern driven by the same force every single time. Greed, corporate greed, dressed up in investor presentations and quarterly earnings calls while the dining rooms empty out. Keep a tight grip on your wallet. Let's go. Number 12. Denny's. Denny's used to be the restaurant that never closed. Open 24 hours. Every day, every holiday, every night your family needed somewhere to go at 2 a.m. and had nowhere else. That promise built a loyal customer base over 7 decades. Denny's, publicly traded on the NASDAQ, decided that loyal customer base was a revenue optimization opportunity. A breakfast combo that cost $9 in 2022 costs $14 today in most markets. The Grand Slam, the brand's most iconic menu item, the one that defined affordable American breakfast for 2 generations, crossed $12 in many locations. Shareholder pressure to expand margins did what shareholder pressure always does. It raised the price until the customers left. Denny's has closed over 150 locations through 2025 and into 2026, with executives publicly acknowledging that further closures are under active evaluation. A regular customer in rural Tennessee, who had eaten at the same Denny's every Sunday morning for 11 years, wrote in a community forum after his location closed, "That place was open the night my father died. It was open the morning my daughter was born. Now it is a vacant lot and the nearest one is 40 minutes away. Open the night his father died." Denny's management closed it anyway to protect a margin percentage that their shareholders demanded. The demographic data underneath Denny's declining numbers tells the longer story. The chain's most loyal customers are older Americans who built a habit around the 24-hour format and the affordable price point. Both of those things are disappearing simultaneously. The customers are not being replaced by younger diners. The habit is simply ending. The chain at number 11 is facing a more acute crisis, one that involves not just empty tables, but empty buildings and workers who showed up for shifts that no longer existed. Number 11. Red Lobster. Red Lobster is the most instructive collapse story in American restaurant history, and almost nobody understands what actually happened. The story most people know is the endless shrimp disaster. The promotion that reportedly cost $11 million in a single quarter. The bankruptcy filing in May 2024. The closure of over 100 locations within months. That is the symptom. Here is the disease. In 2014, Golden Gate Capital, a private equity firm based in San Francisco, acquired Red Lobster and immediately executed a sale-leaseback transaction on approximately 500 restaurant properties. They sold the buildings Red Lobster operated in. They pocketed $1.5 billion. Then they forced Red Lobster to pay rent on the exact buildings it used to own outright. Red Lobster went from asset-rich to cash-strapped in a single transaction, engineered specifically to extract value for Golden Gate Capital before anyone outside the boardroom understood what had happened. Thai Union, the industrial seafood conglomerate, subsequently became a major shareholder and primary supplier simultaneously, when your biggest shareholder is also selling you the shrimp. The incentive to run a shrimp promotion that moves maximum volume regardless of profitability becomes easy to understand. A former Red Lobster general manager in Florida, who watched her location close in the first wave of post-bankruptcy shutdowns, described the final weeks to a local news crew. "We were a quarter full on a Saturday night in December. That used to be our busiest night of the year. The regulars stopped coming years ago. I think they could feel it ending before we could admit it." Golden Gate Capital extracted $1.5 billion. The workers got termination notices. If watching private equity firms engineer the destruction of beloved American restaurant brands from the inside out makes your blood boil, hit that subscribe button right now. We run these investigations every single week. The private equity playbook does not change. Only the brand names do. Done? Good. Number 10. TGI Fridays. TGI Fridays filed for bankruptcy in November 2024. The parent company behind the filing was controlled by Tri-Artisan Capital Advisors, a private equity firm that acquired the chain and proceeded to execute the standard extraction playbook with textbook efficiency. Happy hour scaled back, portion sizes reduced, prices raised, complimentary extras eliminated. The things that made TGI Fridays worth visiting, the affordable drinks, the generous appetizers, the specific Friday night feeling of treating yourself without financial damage, were systematically removed to protect margin targets that Try Artisan needed to hit before their exit. A Jack Daniel's ribs entree that cost $16 cost $24. A chain that built its identity around the working-class Friday night celebration repriced itself out of the working class and then expressed surprise when the working class stopped showing up. A server in New Jersey who worked at a TGI Fridays location for 9 years through the Try Artisan ownership period described watching it happen in a statement she shared with a local food publication. Every year something disappeared from the menu or the happy hour or the portions. Every year they raised the prices to compensate. By the end, we were a mid-tier restaurant charging premium prices for food nobody recognized from the original menu. Try Artisan got their exit. The 9-year server got a closure notice 2 weeks before Christmas 2024. But Try Artisan's extraction was at least visible in the filing documents. What Dine Brands has been doing to Applebee's is quieter, more calculated, and in some ways more insulting because it happened to a brand that genuinely belonged to the people it just abandoned. Number 9. Applebee's? Applebee's is owned by Dine Brands Global, the same publicly traded parent company that owns IHOP. Dine Brands reported to shareholders. Shareholders wanted margin expansion. Dine Brands delivered margin expansion by doing what publicly traded restaurant companies always do. They raised prices and retired the deal that brought people through the door. The 2 for $20 promotion defined Applebee's for 15 years. 2 entrees, 1 appetizer, $20. It was the reason millions of families chose Applebee's over every competing option in their price range. Dine Brands quietly retired it. The same meal now costs $32 in most markets. No announcement, no explanation, just a menu that no longer had the deal that justified the visit. Dine Brands described the departing customers in their own SEC filings as economically cautious consumers. That is the corporate language for people who noticed they were being charged $32 for a meal that used to cost $20 and made a rational decision accordingly. A multi-unit Applebee's franchisee in Ohio, speaking to a restaurant industry trade publication, said what Dine Brands' investor relations team never would. "I signed up to run a value brand. Dine Brands turned it into a mid-tier restaurant without telling the franchisees or the customers. We are the ones paying for that decision." Dine Brands collected the royalties. The franchisee absorbed the empty dining room. Applebee's lost the dinner crowd to its own parent company's greed. But what Roark Capital has done to Subway is a different kind of destruction entirely. Slower, more systematic, and affecting more locations than any other entry on this list. Number 8. Subway. Subway is owned by Roark Capital, a private equity firm that acquired the brand in a deal valued at approximately $10 billion in 2023. Roark also owns Arby's, Buffalo Wild Wings, Sonic, and Jimmy John's. When one private equity firm controls that many competing food brands simultaneously, the word synergy appears in a lot of internal presentations. What synergy means in practice is that every brand in the portfolio gets managed for portfolio-level returns rather than individual brand investment. Subway closed over 1,000 U.S. locations in 2023 alone. Net closures exceeded new openings for consecutive years through 2024 and 2025. The $5 footlong, which was Subway's single most powerful marketing asset and its most culturally significant contribution to American fast food, is a monument to a broken promise that Roark Capital inherited and has shown no interest in honoring. Footlongs now regularly price above $12. A franchise owner in Indiana, who closed 2 locations in 2024 after a decade of operation, described the Roark Capital ownership period with the directness that only someone who has already lost everything can afford. The royalty fees went up, the marketing fund contributions went up, the mandated remodel costs went up. The only thing that went down was the number of customers willing to pay $12 for a sandwich they remember paying $5 for. Roark Capital paid $10 billion for the brand. The franchise owner lost his livelihood. That is the private equity restaurant acquisition story told in 2 sentences. Roark Capital is still collecting fees from every remaining Subway location. But what Starbucks did next involves a different kind of greed, one that reached into the pockets of its own workers at the exact same moment it was reaching deeper into yours. Number 7. Starbucks. Starbucks is publicly traded. It answers to shareholders who want the stock price to go up every quarter. And in 2024 and 2025, The decisions made to satisfy those shareholders produced one of the most dramatic customer exodus stories in the history of the American coffee industry. A standard grande latte cost $6 in most markets. A customized cold brew with additions, the kind of order that became the default for millions of younger customers, was regularly hitting $9 and $10. Customers who had been spending $45 a week at Starbucks did the math out loud, on social media, in front of audiences that collectively numbered in the hundreds of millions. Then, Starbucks announced plans to implement dynamic pricing technology that could vary prices based on demand and time of day. The same surge pricing model that Wendy's tried to bring to burgers. Now coming to your morning coffee, the backlash was immediate and sustained. Starbucks reported its worst quarterly performance in years through 2025, with transaction counts declining across consecutive reporting periods, even as average ticket size held up. The new chief executive, Brian Niccol, recruited from Chipotle specifically for brand rehabilitation credentials, announced a return to simplicity and value. He simplified the menu. He rolled back prices on select core items. He was photographed in actual Starbucks locations talking to baristas, a visual campaign designed to signal that leadership was present and listening. A barista in Seattle who participated in the 2024 union organizing drive, which Starbucks corporate fought aggressively at significant legal cost, described the experience in a statement submitted to the National Labor Relations Board. They spent millions fighting us in court while the CEO collected compensation that would take me 400 years to earn at my hourly rate. Then they hired someone new and called it a fresh start. 400 years. Starbucks called it a fresh start. If the gap between what these corporations say and what they actually do makes your blood boil, hit that like button right now. Send a message to every publicly traded restaurant chain on this list that customers are paying attention and they are done being treated like line items on an earnings report. Done? Good. Number 6. Wendy's. Wendy's made the single most self-destructive pricing announcement in the history of American fast food. In early 2024, the Wendy's CEO got on an earnings call with investors and announced that the company was investing tens of millions of dollars in digital menu boards capable of dynamic pricing. Surge pricing at a fast food restaurant. The idea was to charge more for a bacon cheeseburger at noon, when you are the hungriest and have the least time to go somewhere else, than at 3 p.m. when the lunch rush has passed. The internet responded immediately and with total fury. Within 48 hours, boycott hashtags had accumulated tens of millions of impressions. Within a week, Wendy's corporate was in full retreat, releasing statements claiming the dynamic pricing technology was designed to offer discounts during slow periods rather than to raise prices during busy ones. Nobody believed them. You do not invest tens of millions of dollars in AI-powered menu board technology to give out discounts. Wendy's had revealed the corporate desire, panicked at the public response, and then asked customers to accept a reframing that contradicted the original announcement. Wendy's is owned by the Wendy's Company, publicly traded on the NASDAQ. The surge pricing ambition was not a rogue executive's idea. It was a shareholder value strategy that somebody in the boardroom approved before the CEO put it on an earnings call. A Wendy's franchise operator in Texas, speaking anonymously to a restaurant trade publication after the controversy, described the impact on his locations. Corporate created a national news story about charging customers more money when they are hungriest. I spent 6 months answering for it at my own counter. Customers brought it up while ordering. People do not forget. People do not forget. The Wendy's Company has been managing the consequences of that earnings call ever since. Wendy's told investors what it really wanted to do to customers. The customers heard it. But what Chipotle did is different. They did not announce their greed on an earnings call. They just quietly served you less food and told you it was your fault for not asking correctly. Number 5. Chipotle. Chipotle's corporate parent is Chipotle Mexican Grill, publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange with a market capitalization that at various points in 2024 exceeded $80 billion. $80 billion, and the company spent a meaningful portion of 2024 managing a viral crisis about whether they were putting enough chicken in a burrito. The portion size controversy was not a misunderstanding. Customers across the country noticed that their bowls and burritos were getting smaller. The mountain of rice became a hill. The generous scoop of protein became a polite tap. The social media response was organized and sustained. Customers brought phones into locations and filmed the assembly of their orders, betting that workers would give larger portions when they knew they were being recorded. It was a behavior pattern that said everything about how far trust in the brand had eroded. Chipotle's CEO went on national television and told customers that if they wanted more food, they needed to give the workers a specific look or a nod. He told customers that inadequate portion sizes were their fault for not communicating correctly. The company then posted record quarterly profits driven by cost reduction and price increases in the same reporting period. Chipotle charged $12 for a burrito, reduced the filling, told customers to nod differently, and booked record earnings. A Chipotle customer in Chicago who had been ordering the same bowl configuration for 6 years wrote in a review that accumulated thousands of shares. The bowl I paid $14 for last Tuesday was visibly smaller than the bowl I paid $10 for in 2021. I photographed both receipts. I am not misremembering. They are charging more for less and telling us it is our fault for not asking correctly. Charging more for less and telling customers it is their fault. That sentence belongs in a business school course on how to destroy brand equity efficiently. Chipotle gaslit an entire country over a scoop of rice and still booked record profits. What Red Robin did is less dramatic but hits a different kind of nerve entirely, because they broke the one specific promise that made millions of families choose them over every competitor. Number 4. Red Robin. Red Robin Gourmet Burgers is publicly traded on the NASDAQ. Shareholders wanted margin expansion. Red Robin delivered margin expansion by raising prices and quietly making the promise that built the brand significantly less generous. The bottomless fries, which were the entire value proposition that justified choosing Red Robin over every faster and cheaper alternative, became noticeably less bottomless in practice through 2024 and 2025. Multiple customers across review platforms reported servers being significantly slower to offer refills than in prior years. An average entree crossed $18 in most markets, pushing a basic burger and fries meal above $20 once a drink was added. Customers who had chosen Red Robin as an affordable step-up from fast food were now paying the same as a proper sit-down restaurant with meaningfully better food. Red Robin closed over 40 locations in 2025. Same-store sales declined for 6 consecutive quarters. The new executive team brought in to address the crisis publicly acknowledged in an earnings call that pricing had moved beyond what the brand's perceived quality could support. A family in Colorado who had been going to Red Robin for birthday dinners for 12 years wrote in a review after their last visit, "We paid $23 for a burger that arrived lukewarm and a basket of fries that nobody offered to refill. The waiter apologized and said they were short-staffed. We left and went to a local place around the corner. Better food, lower price, we are not going back." Not going back. That phrase appears in so many Red Robin reviews from 2025 that it reads like a chorus. Red Robin broke the bottomless promise and lost the families who built the brand. But Dine Brands managed to do the same thing at IHOP to a completely different customer, the Saturday morning family, the one that just wanted pancakes. Number 3. IHOP. IHOP is the second brand inside the Dine Brands global portfolio, falling apart simultaneously. The same publicly traded parent company that retired the 2 for $20 deal at Applebee's decided that pancakes were also an underpriced commodity that needed margin expansion. A short stack of pancakes cost $9 as a standalone item in many markets. A full breakfast combo for 2 adults cost $30 before tip. A family of 4 going to IHOP for a weekend pancake breakfast was clearing $60 before anyone ordered orange juice. IHOP was built around one identity: pancakes for everyone. Accessible, generous, affordable. Dine Brands looked at that identity and saw a pricing opportunity. Dine Brands reported declining traffic at IHOP across consecutive quarters through 2025, while simultaneously reporting that the executive compensation pool remained intact. The executives got paid. The pancake customers went to the grocery store, bought a box of mix for $3.49, and made breakfast at home. A grandmother in Georgia, who had been taking her grandchildren to IHOP every Saturday morning for 7 years, wrote in a review that her daughter shared widely on social media, "I took 4 grandchildren for pancakes last Saturday. The bill was $67. I make better pancakes at home for $8. We will not be back." Dine Brands took away our Saturday morning. Dine Brands took away Saturday morning. That is what shareholder-driven margin expansion looks like from the customer's side of the table. Dine Brands destroyed two beloved brands simultaneously from the same corporate office. But Yum! Brands pulled off something even more audacious. They dismantled the physical experience that defined an entire generation's relationship with pizza and called it a strategic evolution. Number 2. Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut is owned by Yum! Brands, the publicly traded restaurant conglomerate that also owns KFC and Taco Bell. Yum! Brands reported $6.8 billion in total revenues in 2024, and in 2024, Yum! Brands decided that the dine-in Pizza Hut, with its red roof and its salad bar and its birthday party booths, was an inefficient use of real estate and labor that the company could no longer justify to shareholders. So they closed the dining rooms. In California specifically, when the state raised the minimum wage for fast food workers to $20 an hour, Pizza Hut franchise operators made a choice. They fired thousands of delivery drivers overnight. Not reduced hours, not restructured routes, terminated. The drivers who had been delivering pizzas for years, who knew the neighborhoods and the regular customers, were handed termination notices so that the franchise operators could switch to DoorDash and Uber Eats and protect their spreadsheet. For customers, the consequences were immediate. Pizza arrived later. Pizza arrived colder. The driver who knew your order was replaced by a contractor juggling deliveries from 4 different restaurants with no investment in whether your pizza arrived at serving temperature. A Pizza Hut driver in Sacramento, who had been delivering for the same franchise for 6 years, described receiving his termination notice to a local television reporter. 3 days notice. 6 years. They sent an email. I found out on a Thursday and was done on Sunday. The franchise owner never called. 6 years, 3 days notice, an email. Yum! Brands collected the royalty on every pizza that DoorDash delivered afterward. Yum! Brands chose the spreadsheet over the driver every single time. But what Golden Gate Capital did to Red Lobster was not just a spreadsheet decision. It was a premeditated extraction that left a 56-year-old American institution in ruins, and a 22-year employee making phone calls to regulars who deserved better than a locked door. Number 1. Red Lobster, the full collapse. Red Lobster appears on this list twice because the full story of its collapse deserves more space than a single entry can hold. The bankruptcy filing, the sale-leaseback, the Thai union shareholder conflict, those are the mechanics. Here is the human cost. When Red Lobster filed for Chapter 11 in May 2024, over 100 locations closed within months. The workers at those locations, servers and cooks, and managers who had built careers at a single restaurant, sometimes spanning decades, received closure notices and in many cases showed up to locked doors. One server in Orlando who had worked at the same Red Lobster for 22 years described the final day to a local news station in terms that no corporate press release about restructuring ever captures. I had regulars who had been coming to my section every Friday for 15 years. I called some of them personally to tell them we were closing because I thought they deserved to hear it from me rather than find a locked door. Nobody from corporate called anyone. Nobody from corporate called anyone. Golden Gate Capital extracted $1.5 billion in 2014 and exited before the consequences arrived. Thai Union moved maximum shrimp volume and exited before the consequences arrived. The private equity firms, the industrial seafood conglomerate, the revolving door of executives who collected compensation packages while the brand deteriorated, none of them were in the parking lot the morning the doors locked. The 22-year server was. The new ownership group that acquired the Red Lobster brand out of bankruptcy has announced intentions to rebuild and reposition the chain. Those announcements are structurally identical to the announcements made by every distressed restaurant brand acquisition before its final contraction. The market position Red Lobster occupied, affordable seafood celebration dining at prices that working families could access for birthdays and anniversaries, no longer exists at the price points the company needs to charge to sustain operations. That is not a turnaround problem. That is an identity problem. And identity problems do not resolve through new ownership press releases. They resolve when a company decides to rebuild trust with the customers it betrayed, one meal at a time, over years. Red Lobster has not shown the operational or financial evidence that this rebuilding is happening. What it has shown is a reduced footprint, continued cost pressure, and a brand name that now carries the specific cultural weight of the most visible restaurant bankruptcy in recent American history. Golden Gate Capital got $1.5 billion. The 22-year server made a phone call to her regulars. That is the Red Lobster collapse story, not the shrimp. The people. Thanks for watching. If this list hit closer to home than you expected, drop a comment below and tell us which closure affected you personally. And if you want to see which restaurant chains are actually growing in 2026 while everything above is falling apart, and more importantly, why they are growing, that video is on your screen right now. Click the video on the left. I will meet you there.